Oddly enough, I'm more optimistic about Cardinals starting pitching. I'm more optimistic about it. I made a joke like, look, quick, somebody get me my meds. Because, I just said that. And, it gets to the point because we dwell on this rotation, and rightfully so, as being substandard, and rightfully so, because Cardinals starting pitching has in fact, it is a fact, been in decline in recent years as far as wins above replacement, as far as strikeout rate, as far as ERA. They have slipped down the rankings. The Cardinals were always in all these different categories, they were always top 5, top 6. And now they're down in the middle of the pack or even worse. So, it's not like I'm afraid to say I feel better about this rotation. It's not that. It's just, and even though I know that goes largely against public sentiment, and that's not what this is about. I'm not a Skip Bayless type. Well, I remember when I was working in Dallas, his paper, the Dallas Times-Herald, there was a quarterback controversy going on, and they did a poll. And that's when, it was all newspapers, nothing online. It was way back when. It was late 80s. And this happened right before I got there, I should say. So you had a huge newspaper war, three-way newspaper war, Dallas Times-Herald, Dallas Morning News, that was my paper, and then the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. So they would do anything to just get people to flock to their site or whatever. Not their site, to their paper, to the paper box. Imagine that. Isn't that quaint? So so they did this big thing. Who would be your starting quarterback? Would it be Danny White or Gary Hogenboom? Remember him? Gary Hogenboom?
Yeah.
And the Dallas Times-Herald played this up. They promoted it. Look, call in. You can call in. We have people standing by to take your vote and all this stuff. So Skip had his column due in about 2 hours at this point. So he called in and he said, "Well, how's the vote going?" And they told him, "Oh man, it's Hogenboom's got a huge lead over Danny White." And he went, "Oh, okay, that's good. It's good to know because I'm going to write a column saying Danny White should be the quarterback." And it had nothing to do with what his authentic opinion was. And now that we've seen him on the talking, hollering dog shows, right?
Yep.
That story, because I'm sure at some point people would have said, "Well, come on, he didn't do that." Well, yeah. So, and I laughed at that because it was vintage Skip, and I thought it was hysterical. But I also made a note to myself, as a young columnist, then a columnist that becomes a 35-year columnist, you don't have to do that. I mean, you got strong opinions anyway, and you're going to write what you think anyway, so you don't have to kind of manipulate that stuff. So, anyway, I just brought that up. So here's what I'm saying: I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to state that I think the Cardinals' rotation might be better than I thought. My fear is that I'm embarrassed myself by saying that, So, but I went ahead with it anyway. Because, look, I got no problem with Woodford being in there for Wainwright. Dare I say he might even be better than Wainwright. We'll find out. Miklasz, when he's been healthy, has been a damn good pitcher. And keep in mind, last year, people forget this, he was named to the All-Star team. Miklasz is a good pitcher when he's healthy, and there's no reason to think he won't be healthy because he had, like I mentioned the other day, he had the one devastating injury. He wasn't going to pitch much. He didn't pitch in 2020 because that's when the injury surfaced. But then he had surgery, so he made only 9 starts in 21. But it's not like he's been injured all the time. Not at all. His 3 healthy seasons, he's been a terrific pitcher. I've got elevated expectations for Steven Matz. One of the reasons I do, and again, this is all predicated on these guys staying healthy. That's the first thing you have to check the box. They got to stay healthy. Well, I went back. Well, first, the reason the Cardinals signed Steven Matz to a 4-year, $44 million deal before last season is because, among other things, they noted how well he pitched in a tough division. And the top 3 teams in that division in 2021, Toronto, the 3 top teams or opponents in the AL East were Boston, which won the division, then Tampa Bay, then the Yankees, or maybe the other way around. But those three teams were outstanding. He had a 2.55 ERA in his starts against those teams. That is a really rugged set of lineups there. And he has improved his strikeout rate even last season. It was up to like 25, 26%. He's got good stuff. The shoulder soreness was unfortunate last season, but when he came back, let's remember the second injury was made when he was trying to make a play, and he hurt his knee. It had nothing to do with pitching. So he's got really good stuff. The guy that pitched the way he did in 2021 for Toronto, I believe he's that guy right now. And if he is, in fact, that guy right now, and that's the reason why the Cardinals gave him a 4-year deal, because he was sort of coming into his own. If he can be close to what that pitcher was, then he's going to have a really good season. Jordan Montgomery has got all the incentive in the world to have a great season. He's a pretty tough guy anyway. And he was like snapping stuff off. I noticed that story where, Montgomery, which they were asking him in spring training, late in spring training, like, would you be willing to sign with the Cardinals? And he was like, because he's kind of salty anyway. And he was like, well, yeah, but if it doesn't happen before the season, no, I'm not even going to talk to him. I'm just going to go ahead and be a free agent. Okay, big boy, we got you. So this is a highly motivated, salty guy who's got a lot of money at stake. And I think that gives him a even sharper competitive edge. And I think he's going to have a hell of a season because there's a lot of money at his feet waiting for him to get that. Because one of these fast-moving ownership groups, San Diego, Philadelphia, who else am I leaving out? Oh, the Mets, of course. Mm-hmm. And there's other teams, too. Texas Rangers. They're going to be looking hard for a left-handed starter that's going to give them quality. Didn't say Cy Young stuff, but quality. So he's highly motivated to do his best, and I think that'll make him even better. So you got Miklasz, who's, to me, established. You've got Matz, who I think is in really prime position to be what the Cardinals thought he would be. I throw out last year because of the injuries. And you have Montgomery, who's highly motivated by free agency. And then you have Jack Flaherty. Now, I took a vow I'm not even going to start evaluating him until they start pitching. But he's healthy and his velocity's intact, and let's just go from there to see. But what if Flaherty has a solid season? Again, not talking about Justin Verlander, but what if he has a solid season? So if you just sort of look at that, and I don't know that it's a best-case scenario, but I think it's a promising scenario if all that falls into place. I don't think it's crazy to think that they could have a pretty good rotation. Would I bet a lot of money on it? Hell no. But I'm just saying I'm surprised that I have more optimism than I thought. Now, I mentioned The Athletic about 7-8 minutes ago, and Fangraphs, for example, has the Cardinals, their updated rankings of starting rotations. Fangraphs has the Cardinals at rotation is about 20th, which kind of was where they have been, last year and then going into this year, at least earlier in the offseason. Well, they moved them up to 20. They were like 21, 22. At The Athletic, and they had their top baseball writing team on this, the Athletic came out and they ranked the starting rotations going into this season, going into opening day. The Cardinals, I'm surprised by this, and I don't even know that I agree with this. I probably don't. They had the Cardinals at number 10 on the 30 teams.
Wow.
Yeah. So I take comfort in that because it tells me, like, well, I guess I'm not crazy for seeing some positives here. And the other thing is like, well, I'm glad somebody else put their reputation on the line. But if you would ask me to define, well, what do you mean? You think they're probably going to be better? I don't know how to define it. I just think that the expectations are pretty low. I totally understand why, and I totally understand. Hey, listen, the Cardinals have been 2 years in a row have had to go scramble for pitching, starting pitching, and before each of the last 2 seasons, it was Oh, we like our depth. We like what we have. Oh, Jack's feeling great. Blah, yada, 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 yada. It goes right, And, of course, at the deadline, there's panic. Gersh is out there looking in the alleys in the pickup truck. Mozeliak's calling everybody, And to their credit, the last 2 seasons, they got total of 4 starting pitchers, 2 in each season. Happened Lester in 21 and then Quintana in Montgomery last year. And all I know is this. Cut to the bottom line, those 4 pitchers for the Cardinals over those 2 seasons, those 4 pitchers, when they were on the mound, the Cardinals were 31-15. So those guys were really valuable pickups. I'm not expecting a dominant staff. I'm just saying I think it'll be I'm counting on more stability and more solidity. That's all I'm trying to say. And if they do that, they should be better than the 20th ranking. That's all I'm saying. Now, some of you might be saying, and you should, well, wait a minute. They already got a pitcher hurt. Yes. Number one, he'll be a 42-year-old pitcher later this season. Number two, his stuff began to deteriorate last season, although no one wants to talk about that. Hey, you can't say that. Yeah, I can. Because I got the facts to back it up. And, that's why you don't see 41-year-old pitchers operating at a high level, because either their pitching is going to start to unravel or physically they're going to, the arm's going to say no mas. Bartolo Colon was like the only guy I can recall in recent years who put a couple, 3 years of starting pitching together, pretty good years at the age of like 40, 42, 43. I don't count Rich Hill because his role is entirely different than Wainwright. So my point is, and I mean no disrespect, I'm just being pragmatic. With some of the alarming things we saw this spring, and he did not have a normal spring training, and he wanted to pitch at WBC. He hurt the groin while doing that. And that's why I say I don't think this is a big setback right now. Maybe it would be later. But I can't be a guy who's advocated, Jake Woodford and someone who's been overlooked and underrated now that he's got his opportunity. What am I going to say? Well, I'm just going to completely flip and say, oh, no, well, he's just kind of a guy. Well, Waino has sort of become kind of a guy. I hate to say it, but it's true. And I want him to have a good farewell season, and I think he'll be stronger when he comes back, because he did not have a routine that was conducive to taking care of a 41, soon-to-be 42-year-old arm and body. And, he came back injured. So, but he'll have plenty of time to get healthy, get stronger, and maybe then he'll pitch really well. I hope so. So, at this point in time, I have no problem with Woodford being in the rotation if Wainwright can't be there. Jake Woodford's got the best ERA by a Cardinal pitcher since September of 2021. Minimum 77 innings, which ain't a lot, but still. 2.34 ERA over that time. So why wouldn't I feel pretty good about him being in the rotation? And the other guys, you can make a case that they can be better than we at least expect. Superstar, great, no. I don't see Verlander and Scherzer there. So I don't see Nola and Wheeler there. I don't see San Diego's rotation. So you don't have to remind me about that. Hell, I know. We've all moaned about the lack of aggression in the front office and securing that staff. But the good news is they do have some young guys on the way. But then again, how many times have we heard that? So anyway, what do you think, Jim? Am I crazy? Do you think they might be a little better than expected? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
a little better.
Yeah,
I'm not saying, I'm not talking about top 5 rotation in baseball.
One thing, and this is dangerous for us to say because on the show we say don't read too much into spring training, but one thing I really liked in spring training was the aggressiveness of Steven Matz.
Right.
It was like, wow, he's a different guy. He's confident in his ability, he's healthy, and he's going after guys. And if he could be that guy, I'm good with that, because that can be a lot of what you lose by losing Quintana and what he brought to you last year when he was acquired. I think, I'm not saying they're going to be equal, but I think there's a little play there that, okay, we replace some of that. I also think you don't have in this year's starting rotation, which is a plus, and it's not to be mean, you don't have a guy who's going to get 26 starts and just start walking guys in Dakota Hudson on the list right now.
I don't want him anywhere near. That's right.
26, when I even had to look it up, I go, wow, 26 starts is a lot of starts for him. And he wasn't good in most of those. You don't have that aspect of that right now. So that's an improvement, I think. You also talk about Jack Flaherty. I don't expect him to be great. I just expect him to take the ball every day and be a nice starter. If you get that out of Jack Flaherty, you get a win, I think. I'm hopeful he can become closer to dominant, but even if he's just good starter, that's better than Dakota Hudson, who he replaces.
Solid starter.
Yes.
And I think I predicted like Flaherty would pitch 100, maybe 160 innings, which, by the way, in today's game, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought his ERA would be maybe like 380 or so. And actually, if he had that kind of season, I'd be fine with that, because I don't expect him to be a Cy Young candidate. The dude has not thrown more than 78 innings in a season since 2019. So his endurance, his durability will be a major factor, how good he can be. But he's got a lot on the line too. He can be a free agent after this season. And he's young enough to where people would look at it. If he, checks the boxes this season, they'll see him in a different light. So just like Jordan Montgomery, there's all kinds of money right at his feet, but he can't take it yet. Big pile of money, can't grab it yet. Got to earn it. Got to perform well enough to where a team will give you that big pile of money. So, and I think Jack is highly motivated. I know a lot of people don't care for him or whatever. That's fine. But I think he's highly motivated. I don't question his heart. He and the Cardinals, they're both guilty or culpable of mishandling his injury situation. And that's the regret that I think the team and I think Jack Flaherty deep down inside, if he doesn't turn it around this year, I think that is a regret that they both will have to own. Because, especially last year, although I don't know that Flaherty would have been able to stay healthy because he had so many interruptions. But Marmol's two biggest mistakes all season, let's take them in chronological order. Having Jack Flaherty when he clearly wasn't ready, coming in the office. He was still scheduled to do more rehab work, including a start. Jack Flaherty coming in the office and pleading to be allowed to return to the rotation. Next time his turn would pop up. And Marmol knew better, but he let Jack Flaherty. He gave Jack Flaherty what he wanted. And Jack Flaherty, I understand his rush and competitiveness. He wants to be out there. I get that. But you got to be pragmatic and you got to be smart. You don't rush a guy back when he's not ready. That was a horrendous mistake by Oli Marmol. And the second one I don't have to tell you about. Game 1, 9th inning, playoff contest against the Phillies. Ryan Helsley. Sat there and watched the whole season blow up. I think the guy's a hell of a manager, but if he talks tough about this kind of stuff. Well, it's a competition. Guys are going to have to show us they've earned their spot. They're going to have to do this. They're going to have to do that. As much as I really think the guy's a good manager, he's got the one weakness he has, and it's one. He has that there's a side of him that will defer to certain players. If Adam Wainwright says, I want to start game 3, I'm Adam Wainwright. I know that I got killed in the final month of the regular season, but I want the ball in game 3. Okay. Jack Flaherty, Skip, I can pitch. I know I can. Yeah, I don't know, though, Jack. We think you need, a little more work. You need to sharpen up. We got pretty good reports from you from the minors and the assignment, rehab assignment. But, no, we think you need to – we'd like to see you just pitch a little more. No. I know I'm ready. I want to pitch for my team. I'm ready. Okay. He's Oli needs to stop with the sort of the tough guy talk, because you can't be the tough guy manager. You insisting everything's a competition. Whoever pitches the best, they're going to get the ball. Whoever's hitting the best, they're going to be in the lineup. Yeah, in a perfect world, that's how it would work. But he has this, Adam Wainwright, he just can't stand up to. And Jack Flaherty was able to talk his way back onto the mound, and it was a total disaster, and he got hurt again. So I hope that Ali Marmol learned from that. I really do. I think a first-year manager is going to make mistakes. He made a couple of whoppers. That's not unusual. He was really, really good in so many ways. I hope that he sort of got that Mike Matheny, Mike Schilt stuff out of him, the little bit that was left. Oh, that's my guy. That's our guy. Stop that. If performance matters, you have to go by that standard.
Another thing with first-year managers, and there's not everyone, but most of them, they're managing the Pirates and, the Reds. So those mistakes, when they make them, you go, well, it's the Reds. They're not very good anyway. When you make them with a team like the Cardinals or that's in the playoffs and you make them in the playoffs, it looks that much worse. And it was bad. There's no doubt about that. But he just comes across as a guy who is super smart, understands it. Yeah, okay, I messed that up. It's time to move on. I hope he has the ability, like you said, to make that decision this year with a couple of guys when it's time to be the adult in the room and say, no, I got to make this decision, and this isn't the pleasant decision, but I'm making it. Right. He steps up and does it because that is part of taking his game, so to speak, to the next level.
And Wainwright was, I think, miffed. I think he made it pretty clear to the media. He didn't go on some all-out criticism, but you could tell that he was perturbed that he wasn't going to make the start in either of the first two games against Philadelphia. And I'm thinking, dude, you did watch yourself pitch in September, right?
Yeah.
And I never bought that poppycock story about he discovered a flaw in his delivery after he got hit by a batted ball right on the knee by Atlanta in late August or whatever. So it took him a month to spot what happened. This is one of the smartest pitchers I've ever known, and he's amazing about studying things and spotting the smallest thing there is and capitalizing on it. That's how he gets the advantage over hitters, and he keeps them he just mysteriously just baffles them all the time. His tape study, his video study is essential to that. That same guy who is incredibly smart when it comes to picking up stuff on video. You mean to tell me that for 1 month he couldn't pick that up on video and it just happened? Oh, it just so happened after they were eliminated from the postseason. I'm sorry, man. I don't buy it. It's like I talked about this a couple weeks ago. It's the Kurt Warner thing. It doesn't mean the guy's a liar. It just means he's an intense competitor, and he wanted to be able to supply a reason for this, why he collapsed. Just like Kurt Warner, I won't go to the whole spiel again. Kurt Warner, bless his heart, unbelievable competitor. He would take so many hits for that team, but he just never would own up to the fact that his hand was damaged and he was having a hard time gripping the ball. He just refused. He refused to say yeah. He just like he had too much pride to sort of cop an injury as an excuse. So I respect guys who are great competitors, but they also sometimes stray into this area where they don't realize that if they're not reasonably close to 100%, they're only hurting their team by trying to play in those type of situations. That's all.
Texter,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to, didn't mean to interrupt. Texter asked the question, Bernie, do you think the Cardinals should be more aggressive and try and get Jordan Montgomery signed?
I don't know. And sometimes you got to say, I don't know. Because I don't know if there's been any discussions. I don't sense that there are. And I don't know whether now that Montgomery's kind of popped off about, well, once regular season starts, that's it. They say athletes will say that, but then their agent are like, hey, you know what? This is a hell of an offer from them. But I just don't know if the Cardinals are prepared or desirable of really getting after it, trying to sign him. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I really don't know. Because it seems to me he's a pretty viable guy going forward, but it also, I can understand if he has an entirely different value put on himself than maybe what the Cardinals do,
Yeah, there is a lot of that because even I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I don't have a good feeling for where the ceiling is for him yet. I think it's higher. I believe it's higher.
Right.
But, he was so good when he first got here, and Cardinals had him changing pitch selection around. And then towards the end, it wasn't as dominant. So, it's probably somewhere in the middle, but I don't know. The other thing is, and you brought this up, he does have a burr in his saddle. I remember, that's when he got here from the Yankees. He was frustrated with the Yankees. So he was like, I can't believe they traded me. This is ridiculous. Well, I'll show them.
Right. He did.
And he's got a contract he's playing for. He seems like a guy that can be motivated that way. So he could have a really good year, or he could just be average and go, yeah, he's the guy. I just don't have a feel for him yet.
If you had a really strong rotation, he'd be about a number 3. Or even a number 4, and there'd be nothing wrong with that, But they don't have a real strong rotation. I think they're going to have a respectable rotation. I think it's going to be a little more solid than even I believed a while back. But I like some of the things I've seen so far. And again, I have the fact that Woodford is in there instead of Wainwright. I got no problem with that. Woodford has pitched damn well when given an opportunity, and he's not a baby. He's got some years on him, and this is his time. He's another guy that can take major advantage of an opportunity. And the Cardinals have a lot of those guys in the starting pitching picture, looking to increase their value or whatever. So, and I think that does tend to bring out the best. Like you mentioned, the Yankees and Jordan Montgomery. He was stunned by the trade. He was angered by the trade. And it just so happened his first start as a Cardinal was against the Yankees on that Saturday afternoon. And he just completely owned them. And that tells me he's the kind of guy that gets that extra gas when he's ticked off about something,
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.